Hey, friends. All right. We up already. Hello. Hello. Welcome to okay. Oh, and we're live on this on Instagram for the very first time, simultaneously while I'm doing it here on Facebook and YouTube. I don't know. I'm going to see how many platforms I can possibly be on before somebody yells at me and tells me I'm doing too many. Okay, so I just need to. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh, I touch one button and my whole. There we go. Okay. So I do these live streams usually once a week on Facebook and on YouTube. And now I'm kind of expanding out to do them also on Instagram. So if you see me like looking over here, I'm looking at the beautiful people on Instagram. Okay. Tim says the picture isn't great. Yes. Let me see if I can fix that. All right. All right. Let's try this. Pause due to poor connection. Okay. Okay. Reconnecting. Okay. I think we're live once again over here. Okay, good. We're just getting warmed up. That's all. So I've got my tea. I hope everyone is doing well. Hello, Sarah. Hello, Austin. Hello, Mike. Hello, Jimmy. Hello, Derek. Hello, Christopher. And Casey is here. Hello, Casey. Transcaster Radio is here. Hendo is here. Living a Life Through Books is here. Oh, all these wonderful, wonderful people. Connection stopped. Okay, we should be back up. Okay, we should be everywhere. Takara is here. Hello. Okay. I have tea because, as many of you know, I got to a point where I stopped being able to handle all the caffeine that I was pumping through my body and my bloodstream. So I've got tea tonight in my beautiful, hot, delicious rainbow alchemy mug here. And we're going to be talking a little bit about moving forward with our podcasts during times that are, how do we even describe these modern times that we're in? Difficult, I think. Casey says, Dr. Pepper and Vanilla Coke for life. Wonderful. Podcast in the Mix is here. Hello. Yeah, so Christopher, I'm going to disappoint you because I've got tea. I've got tea, but it's okay. It's gentler on my system. And actually, it ties in with today's topic, where we're going to be talking a little bit about how to keep moving forward. And I feel like this is going to be a different experience for a lot of people. Hey, Adrian is here. Hello. And because people have very, very different experiences with what's going on right now. And I'm going to issue a content warning just for this live video. I am going to be talking about coronavirus and sort of the effect that it's having on podcasting and sort of the effect that it's, having on all of us. So if you're here, thank you for being here. Please feel free to use the comments. I'll try to respond if I can, or I'll have my lovely mod Tim respond as well. This is really cool. So one of my high school friends, Adrian, is here, and I'm really, really happy to see you. Hello. This is really cool. Okay, so I think first of all, I want to say that I hope you're doing okay. And in fact, I hope you're doing well. I hope that you're doing really, really, really well right now. And if you're not, I'm sorry. And I hope things get better for you very soon. This is a hard time for a lot of people. There's a lot of unemployment. There's a lot of, I guess, what do you call it? Underemployment. There is a lot of, I went to the grocery store today and it was terrifying. not because like anything bad happened, just because I think it's easy to um, get a certain feeling and a certain vibe from the other people around you and to like exacerbate that in your chest and understand that once we're through with this, life won't be the same. And that's okay, maybe. Change is good. I learned that from watching The Lion King back in whenever it came out, like 1995. Change is good. Rafiki told me that. And I believe him because he is a sage. Change is good. And I know that we've been facing a lot of changes in podcasting. Living a Life Through Books says, OMG, grocery stores are scary. People here are not social distancing. Oh, yeah, same here. Well, I feel like here it kind of goes two ways. I saw two, I never like to say, oh, there's two types of people in the world. But there were two types of people at the grocery store today. And I hadn't been to the grocery store in like 4.5 weeks because like we stocked up and we've been baking bread and we've been doing all that stuff. And so when I was in the grocery store, there were people like me who had on masks and were like, do not touch me. Do not let me touch anything. I am going to pick up this item and then I'm going to get out of here as quickly as I can without like touching anything or being touched. And then the other type of people like no mask, like just like normal as heck, like squeezing past me to like get the donuts or whatever, just like completely living life normally. And I think that a lot of this, we talk about things now being scary and different, and they are. And I think that a lot of us become and live into, we become defined by how we react to the fear. So I put on a mask and I drove to the grocery store and I didn't touch anyone. And I had a really uncomfortable time because I was scared the whole time. And I'm not saying this is necessarily a metaphor for podcasting because it's not, but just that things are different right now. And a lot of people are doing things in different ways, which, you didn't need to hear that from me. You know that already. You know how your world is changing. So how do we keep moving forward? And what does it mean to move forward right now? This is something that, like I said earlier, I don't have answers necessarily. I feel like, oh, and I just noticed it says we'll be starting soon. So let me get rid of that. There we go. Sorry, because obviously we're already started here. Living a Life Through Books says, metaphor for podcasting, be scared. But fear is often what keeps us from doing what we want to do and what we should be doing. I posted on Instagram and on Facebook earlier today. What is the thing that's keeping you from podcasting? Like, what is the thing that is keeping you, or when you initially first started, what was it that kept you from starting right away? And for me, it was fear. And we've talked about fear in these live streams before. And I think we're going to continue to talk about fear because it plays a huge role in our lives as human beings. It's a survival instinct. It's here to keep us safe and protect us. Fear is here to not necessarily run or control our lives, but just to give us a little nudge toward comfort and safety, which I think we need a lot of the time. So, not running out into the street and getting hit by a car, that's fear that keeps me from doing that. And that's a good thing. But when fear keeps you from starting a podcast, then yeah, that might be a little bit of a problem. So we're going to talk about what it means to move forward right now and what that means for you. Yes, you specifically as a podcaster. I've had the very interesting experience of working on season 2 of Girl in Space, all of this is happening. And it's really, really interesting. And I say that because the story behind Girl in Space is inherently a story of isolation. And I've gotten some feedback from listeners who say, like, oh, like, I'm actually listening to this as like comfort food right now because, I need to hear about somebody who has a positive, um, I guess, sort of a positive demeanor, despite being isolated and branded by a corporation and all of that. So, working on season 2 has been just difficult. And it's been difficult for me for a lot of reasons. And I promise this will all come together. And it will touch on the topic that I promise we're going to talk about tonight. We're talking about fear. We're talking about being in essentially a new place, or understanding that together we're all moving toward a new place, societally, culturally. Even podcasting might be changed because of this. And like I said in the beginning, change is good, even though, as KC pointed out over here on Instagram, they had to burn down the kingdom of the lions in order for things to change. So, that's maybe a metaphor too. Casey also said, so I don't know if a lot of you know, oh, good. My phone's going into low power mode. That's fantastic. Good. That's what I want. A lot of you know Casey Whalen from We're Alive, and Casey is over here on Instagram and says, long form story building gets stressful as it stacks on old stories. I get and understand that fear. Yeah. So what are we dealing with right now? We're dealing with fears of maybe getting sick or our loved ones getting sick. We're dealing with the fear and anxiety that comes from not having enough, whether that's employment, whether that's money, whether that's food. Not having enough is kind of terrifying because it goes against what we need to survive. We're afraid of judgment of other people. We're afraid of maybe not being able to produce our best content in this time. There's a lot. There's a lot going on. Hey, John Grills is here from Creepy Pod. So Living a Life Through Books asks, how does podcasting change in this environment? I have my little podcast and COVID-19 has not changed anything. I keep doing what I used to be doing. What am I missing? So, that's such a good question. So some of you are maybe like me in that things haven't really changed at all for you. So for me, I'm self-employed. I work from home. I'm not used to, leaving home a whole lot. And going to the grocery store today was a new experience. Unless I'm out working in a coffee shop, I'm largely here home writing and podcasting and working on my business. And I feel a little bit of guilt about that because my life hasn't changed as drastically as so many other people's. And so living a life through books over here on Instagram is kind of saying, like, I'm not feeling a change. And I think for you, if you are in a place where you don't feel a lot of change right now, this is a wonderful, wonderful time to keep doing what you're doing. This is a fantastic time to double down on your message and your mission. This is a great time to understand that other people are feeling extra fear, extra anxiety. This is a fantastic time to realize exactly how much power you have to help other people right now. So for those of you who, like me, I've been doing live streams like this. I've been doing sort of my normal blogging. And it's been, again, I feel a little guilty about it. I have a sister, my sister Rachel works in healthcare, and she's at a hospital every day wearing a mask if they have them, and working up close with people who are going through something really terrifying. Um, oh, Living a Life Through Books says, I'm not feeling a podcast change. However, my life closed my practice. Okay. So yes, yes. Okay. Yes. We're all feeling, oh my gosh, different things there. But as far as your podcast is concerned, if you have the time and space now to move forward with your podcast, then move forward with it. There are a lot of people who need it and who can benefit from it. Derek says, for myself, work has not changed, but my wife's has. So that means trying to balance her being here when I'm normally working on podcast stuff, right? So a lot of us, and I'm going to say us and not include myself, but just empathetically, I can say, yes, I understand. Maybe you have a change in your schedule that you need to navigate. Those of you who need people together in the same room to record a podcast, this is one of the biggest problems I think I've seen talking to people on Facebook and Twitter. Getting people together. And we'll talk about remote recording in just a second. Casey says, riding with a toddler around. That's fun. Oh my gosh. Jizraj says, I definitely have some survivor's guilt going on right now. My job is essential and I'm able to still go to work and put food on the table while many others can't. Yeah, this is a very weird time. And there's different degrees to which you're affected. So I am very minimally affected. And I'm using this time to try to reach out to people and continue producing things and infusing them with a positive message and doing what I can in hopefully a non-cringy way. But definitely feeling like that survivor's guilt. So I think for those of us at that end of the spectrum, things are a little easier. But if you have a toddler at home, if you have a spouse who is not used to being home or who is in your podcasting space, if you are a single parent who is suddenly expected to homeschool all 5 of your children who are all wildly different ages. I have a friend who is doing that right now, and she's not okay. Things are a little bit different. So I don't really have answers. And Living a Life Through Books says, at least you're using your survivor's guilt to help us. So good. I hope this is helpful. I hope this is helpful. Like I said, I don't have any answers, but I want you to know that there is a community of creators who loves you and who understands or is trying to understand what you're going through. And I want to say that however you are able to move forward. So whether that is if you're on the spectrum where I am, where my life has not been incredibly significantly impacted, use this time the best you can to, write your next story, to infuse a good message into your story, to keep podcasting, to help keep others' spirits up, to really keep an eye on what kind of message you're spreading on social media. Are you fueling love or are you fueling fear? And it's hard not to fuel fear when you're feeling it yourself. I feel like that was a little bit of a tongue twister. Um, I have to be really conscious of when I'm tweeting online. And I tweeted some political stuff earlier today that I think I'm going to take down later. Because, what kind of message are you sharing right now? How are you influencing people? As podcasters and as creators, we're influencing people. Even if you feel like your audience is not that big, even if you feel like you have a very small audience, you're still getting through to people. And so it's really important to, if you have the time to communicate with people, it's a really good time to evaluate your message and just be intentionally share. So you might not do it perfectly. I sure don't do it perfectly. But I think trying counts. Jules says, I'm home on furlough currently, so it's a great time to try working on writing my podcast. But I've also been fatigued from stress. So bravo to everyone managing to work and produce right now. Mike says, it's good to just get together with other people and share our stories. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Whether that is hopefully online or with the members of your immediate family who you share a workspace. That's a new one. Tim says, words have power. Now is the time to use that power to uplift and support your neighbors. Absolutely. Living a Life Through Books says, I have a super small audience. That's okay. That is okay. I've been doing sort of on that topic, and I feel like this is a whole nother talk for a whole nother day. The size of your audience doesn't really matter because your audience will grow. And what's important right now is that you're putting out content that is meaningful for you and that acts on your message. Okay, John from CreepyPod says, I told everyone how many times I've asked my wife to draw me like her French girls. It's 3. And now 4 apparently. So cheers to you for, for being awesome. Jimmy says, you have to be who you are, but I try to remember my 2 rules of social media. Number 1, be useful. Number 2, don't be a jerk. And he says, I'm not always successful. You know what? Nobody's always successful. Even the people who look like they're always successful, they're not always successful. We all have our hidden failures and we all have our, I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with hidden failures on that. Kevin feel anger and disappointment most of these days now. So I'm going to say it's not wrong. Oh, Tim says, don't forget to throw people's quotes up on the screen. So I'm going to share Kevin's note here. And Kevin says, I just sort of feel anger and disappointment most of these days. And I understand that. And that is extremely valid because we're talking about not only, major change, major upheaval in the world going on right now with coronavirus, but also, at least here in the States, there's a lot of political stuff going on. And it's, so like, there's just more to be upset about right now. And that's extremely valid. Feeling angry and out of control and stressed, it's not what you want to be feeling, and it's not what I want you to be feeling. Living Life Through Books says political stuff. What? No. Yeah. It's okay if you're stressed out right now. And the topic of tonight's live stream is moving forward with your show, no matter where you are or how you're feeling right now. And moving forward is going to mean something different for all of us. Moving forward means something for me right now. So my moving forward is continuing to do live streams, continuing to be involved in the podcasting community, continuing to create, even if I go to the grocery store and have a panic attack, like taking a deep breath, remembering to take care of myself, remembering to go to bed at a reasonable time, remembering to drink tea and not coffee, all that stuff. Now, for those of you who are at home with the toddlers, yes, you at home with the 3-year-old who is maybe running around with your podcasting equipment and banging on pots and pans, or maybe your spouse who doesn't understand that you need time and quiet in order to podcast, or maybe the fact that you can't get out of bed. I've been there too. if you are sick, if you are depressed, if you're feeling anxious, if the state of the world has gotten you into a place, oh, Casey says 4 years old. If the state of the world has gotten you into a place where you're just done, that's okay. That's where you are right now. And you need to, I feel like, be okay with that. But be okay with it in a way that you love and accept yourself and not you want to stay there for the rest of your life. Jimmy says, that was me pretty much all last week. I was a horrible human being. Yeah, I mean, this is a really great time for all of us. And this is something that doesn't take any time or energy. And that is to extend grace and understanding and empathy to our fellow humans and to our spouses and to our roommates and to our partners and to our listeners, etc. And this is a really good time for us to understand what's important. And that, I feel like that sounds really cliche, but it's really true. Oh, John says they're 8 and 5. So you've got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old running around. Biggest mistake I made was letting her play a role in an ad, and now she won't leave me alone. Oh my gosh, that's adorable. She needs her own podcast. Sarah says, I called in sick for work yesterday, even if I work from home, because I needed to hide under the covers and not deal with this for a day. Yeah, that's extremely legit. I know we've talked in previous live streams about self-care and how important it is to take care of yourself, to keep drinking water, to go to bed at a reasonable time, to get up and try to shower. Yeah, I said try to shower. I showered today. I felt good about myself when I did that. Derek says mental health sick days are completely valid. They completely are, especially when there's so much fear and uncertainty in the air. Those feelings are contagious, especially if you have a high capacity for empathy. If you're a high empathy person, feeling everything that's going on right now is a huge burden. It's you're investing your emotional energy in dealing with that. So yeah, mental health sick days are completely valid. But what about there's just so much that I want to talk about on this topic. And I want to tell you that, like so many other things, this pandemic is a season. This pandemic is a season. And not every season is for everything. So actually, some of us podcasters do our shows in seasons. So if you have a fictional podcast, or I've seen nonfiction podcasts do it too, where they'll have like season 1, season 2, and then they'll batch record and release in batches. And so they'll be on season and off season. Not every season is for everything. I think of it as putting sabbaticals into your life, or putting in sections or rest breaks or work intensive sprints. If you want to get, what is that? It's not waterfall. What's the other project management thing that I'm thinking of? I'm not going to think of it. It's been a while since I was in the digital world. So Tim asks, can you explain more what you mean by this pandemic is a season? Yeah. So I'm going to use the term season in a really loose sense. Oh, thank you, Agile. Thank you, Mike. Sprints, that's right. Work sprints, 2-week sprints for Agile. That's right. So going back to explaining more of what I mean by this pandemic as a season. So you go through different seasons in your life, and not every season is a determined amount of time. And in fact, I think that often a season can be defined by how it makes you feel and what state you're in. And I know that we've all been through at least one season, like with a capital S. So if you went to high school or if you went to some kind of, educational, uh, institution, you had maybe a summer break and that was a season. Or you had your senior year and it was just like wild and crazy and stressful. That was a season. I feel like my 4 college years were maybe a season in and of themselves. I feel like Sean says, turn, turn, turn. Yes, with every season. Sometimes seasons are short. So a season might be a week. Like, okay, a season might be 2 weeks. A season might be a month. A season might be 3 years. A season might be going through some kind of ordeal. A season might be working on your thesis paper. A thesis might be writing a book. A season might be the coronavirus season that we're in right now. But the thing with seasons is that they end. And that's a good thing. This season will end. Just like all seasons end. And it can be really hard to understand your place in a season. Sean says, thanks, got to go do a podcast. Good. Go do your thing. It's hard when you're in the midst of a season because you don't know what percentage through you are. We don't know how long this season will last. Like, we know it'll end, but we don't know when. And that's part of the uncertainty that we're all dealing with, is how afraid do I? Yeah, Jules says, as my mom always said, this too shall pass. Yeah, this will pass. I want to be really careful when I talk about how we use our time and our energy during this season, because I need to be very understanding and respectful that not everyone is having the same experience right now. And we talked about that a little earlier on in tonight's live stream, how everybody's having a very different experience. Will Smith in his mansion is having a very different experience than the woman down the street who has 5 kids. Like, oh my gosh. She has to, she's not bringing in any income right now and she can't pay her rent. I think what I want to say about this is, wherever you are and wherever you need to be. Oh, good. My dad's calling. He wants to FaceTime with me. Sorry, Dad. I'm live streaming. I don't know what that just did to my Instagram watchers, but I'm sorry. This is my dad's fault. Everyone blame my dad. I totally lost my train of thought. Thanks, Dad. Wherever you are in this season, there we go. Okay, we're back. Sorry to everybody on Instagram. My dad decided he wanted to FaceTime me. So, now he's calling me. Hold on one second. Hey, Dad, I'm in the middle of recording a video. Can we talk later? I love you. Okay, bye for now. Okay. Sorry about that. I love my dad. He's one of those people who, if you don't pick up the phone, he won't leave a message. and he won't stop calling. He will call. He will call until you pick up, whether that's 15 times or 20 times in a row. So, I mean, and I'm grateful for it because I love my dad and I love that I have a good and healthy relationship with my dad. Um, but I'm also live streaming right now. So thank you for being patient with me. Stacy says this is my favorite live stream you've done yet. So everyone got to be on a call with my dad today. So that was delightful. Casey says it's hard to always be creative all the time and especially emotionally draining at times. You don't have to be creative if you're not feeling it. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's right. That's what I was talking about before my dad called and interrupted us. This is your time, but that doesn't mean you need to like hustle extra or churn out extra podcasts. If you're in a place where, you know, you feel a sense of accomplishment for like taking a shower that day, like if you took a shower today and you got out of bed, even though your instincts all told you to stay in bed and hide from the world, that's awesome. You're doing the best you can, and that's good. You are doing the best you can, and that's good. I want to say that again. Whatever you're doing right now, if you're doing the best you can, then that's all you need to be doing. I think I talked about this in a previous live stream, but I keep seeing tweets going around like, oh yeah, Shakespeare wrote King Lear during the plague. Like that's what he did in quarantine, so what's up with you guys? Like that is not the right attitude right now. The right attitude right now needs to be one of grace and understanding. Like Casey said, it's hard to be creative all the time. And it's extra hard to be creative when everyone around you is freaking out. It's hard to be creative when you're freaking out. Yeah, worst case scenarios kick in and it's hard not to panic. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, if you can work on your podcast right now, if you have the time, if you have the energy, if you have it in your heart that you need to be creating right now, then please go ahead and create. I'm one of those people that I am not mentally healthy or happy if I am not creating in some way. And so I need to be creating right now. And that's just me. Everybody is going to be different. And the worst thing we can do right now is compare our situations and our productivity to somebody else's. So somebody whose podcast you listen to, they might be in a place where they can churn out a new episode every day. Good for them. Like seriously, I'm not saying that to be like sarcastic, like good for them. No, good for them. That's amazing. If they have a good positive message, if they have something powerful to share, that could be exactly what somebody needs right now. And that's perfect. But if you're in a place, there's a train going by, that's fine. If you're in a place where you need to put your show on hold for a little bit, that's okay. Your listeners will be here when you get back. You might have to do a little bit of extra marketing and be like, hey everyone, I'm still here. Come listen to my new episode. But they'll still be there. Jules says, thank you. I needed to hear that. Good. I am especially, so the reason that I'm very passionate about being gracious to yourself and being generous to yourself and extending grace to your own self is that I'm very bad at doing this for myself. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I can't do this for myself, but I want you guys to do it. Do it for me. Take good care of yourselves. because I'm not taking good care of myself. No, I've been taking really good care of myself lately, hence the tea, the bedtimes. I feel great. I've been walking every day. But what we can't do right now, yes, like Tim says here, comparison is doing yourself a great disservice. Absolutely. Absolutely. You never know somebody else's story fully. You never fully know their situation. So I don't know if you've seen a lot of shoulds out there like, oh, during the pandemic, you should be using your time to release extra episodes, or you should be doing this, or you should be doing that. Don't pay any attention to that. Mm-mm. I've lost whole days of work and whole days of writing because, I look at my Twitter moments and I see, oh, this many people, have come down with coronavirus and are sick. And, like Casey said a little bit earlier, Shakespeare wasn't getting constant updates on the plague, especially when we're in a generation that thrives on information, right? We're addicted to information. At least I am. I am addicted to information. And so, like, if it's possible for me to get more and more updates and to, in doing so, feel like I'm monitoring my own health and my own risk, like, of course I'm going to do that. And that takes us away from creating. I feel like I'm saying a lot of different things tonight. I feel like I'm telling you to understand that we're in a season and that this season will end. I'm telling you to be extra gentle and loving and gracious and considerate and empathetic with yourself right now in this season, and to try to extend that grace and empathy to others. But start with yourself, because that's hard. It's really hard to understand in such an unprecedented time what our shoulds are. And when I talk about should, I'm talking about production. I'm talking about how we're supposed to feel, what we're supposed to be producing right now, how much hustle we're supposed to be doing with our businesses. If you're an entrepreneur like me, it's like, yeah, use this time to build up your skill set and take all these courses. And how about we just move forward one step at a time in the way that we are best suited to with what we have to work with right now. We move forward. Take one step at a time. I did a podcast episode on the Right Now podcast a few weeks ago about when writing isn't really writing, and how creating something, even writing, is more than just writing. Like, podcasting is more than just like talking into the mic. Podcasting is all sorts of things. Podcasting is thinking of ideas. Podcasting is building your network, building your audience, being on social media. Podcasting is even thinking about podcasting. So even if you're thinking about podcasting, you're still moving forward a little bit. Maybe not as much as you want to or you feel you should, but you're still moving forward. Kevin says, I have a habit of checking on the numbers constantly and trying to be formed, but it's not fun. No, it's not fun. It's horrifying. It's really horrifying. Those of us who have had our routines interrupted, if you are used to, oh, hi, Leslie. If you're used to recording in a group, if you're used to recording with people, I don't know how many of you are trying out remote recording, if that has worked for you. Girl in Space is all remote recording, and I stopped doing interviews for the Right Now podcast a long time ago. So I've sort of made my peace with remote recording. Those of you who have given it a try and you're not used to doing it, I'd be curious to hear what your experience is. Your podcast might be completely different when you try it, and maybe that's a good thing and maybe it's not. Moving forward is hard. Oh, Tim asks, can you please explain to the layman about remote recording? Yes. So, oh, Casey says we have Passover starting, but sending all my love to everyone, strength from within. Casey, you're such a gem. I love and appreciate you. Thank you. So talking in layman's terms about remote recording. So I record Girl in Space remotely, which means that I just have my actors send in their parts, and you can do that just cold. You can do that as, so you can do like a table read together over a service like Skype or Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever million other services. Zencaster is a good one. I just did a remote recording session. We did a table read for Moonbase Theta Out, and then we did a remote recording session where we all got together over Zencaster, and we all had our headphones on, so the sound didn't bleed. But we then just save our recordings as a WAV file and send it out for editing and mastering and all of that stuff. Leslie says, I actually just did my first remote interview. There were some tech issues, but we ended up making it work. Yeah. We ended up making it work, I think, is a phrase that we're all going to be hearing and maybe even saying ourselves a lot. Yeah, remote recording has worked out fairly well. So everybody stays at home, they dial into Zencaster, they dial into Skype or Zoom or what have you. They have their recording program running, or if you're just doing a table read, you just all read it together. I know in my case, when we were recording for Moonbase Theta Out, we had a little bit of lag with one of our actors. So there was like a little bit of like, it wasn't perfectly smooth, but it was still sort of, it was a good approximation to the energy you get during a live recording session. And so it's definitely something to think about if, and that's a big if you have the time and the energy to record right now. Big if. Robert says, I've always used remote recording and I like it. Yeah, for me, I live in South Dakota, and that's not to say there's not good actors here. Just that I feel like it's a little bit easier if not everybody has to drive like 8 hours to get together for a recording session. Stacy says, I saw that you were live on Patreon earlier. Are you finding purpose by connecting more directly with listeners? That's a very good question. Finding purpose by connecting with listeners. I think that's, oh boy, I have like 10 different answers to this question. Connecting with listeners is valuable right now. So for those of you who have been, reading podcast industry studies, podcast listening is down between 10 and 20% because not as many people are taking mass transit and going into work and all of that stuff. And people are wondering like, oh, is this permanent? Are people not listening to podcasts? And no, people are still listening to podcasts. Podcasts will continue to grow. I've actually been listening even more because I have time and space to do that. Oh, my Aunt Melissa's here. Hello. But as for connecting with listeners, I don't think I'm doing it really any more or any less than I was before the whole coronavirus thing. I think that right now people are searching more for connection, if that makes sense. So like I'm not necessarily doing more reaching out to people, but I've noticed that more people are tuning in. Um, if that makes sense. And I think that if you reach out to your audience, so if you don't have the time or energy um, to record an episode or to like write your 23 episode audio drama, if you're willing to jump on a live stream to your patrons, or if you're willing to jump on an Instagram live or do, a live stream like I'm doing right now, connecting with people and just letting them know you're there and you're thinking of them, I think that can be really big. Odd Dad Out says, I've heard weekday listening is down, but weekend listening is up a bit. Yeah, I've seen different fluctuations in the numbers. And are they permanent? I don't know. I don't think so. But who knows? This is a season. And we very rarely exit seasons unchanged in some way. And whether your season is a time of unparalleled productivity and discovery and learning, or whether your season is homeschooling 5 children of different ages and not paying your rent on time, you're going to come out of this changed, and your podcast might come out of this a little bit changed as well. Kevin says, US listeners lost that travel time between places, something visual media couldn't really occupy as effectively. Right. And, after this, we might see a shift to more people working from home and less commuting in general. Maybe people will realize that, hey, working from home is, less overhead for my employees, and it's, safer. There's fewer accidents there, whatever the reason. And that might change podcasting, but your audience, I think, is still out there. Right. And Kevin says, I don't think the down in podcast listening is a forever thing. I think it's a change in many people's lifestyles. Exactly. Now, whether they'll go back after that or not, we don't know. Jizraj says, something that might be worth bringing up to your respective audiences. Sorry, this is a really big comment, so you're just going to see my eyes above this. And those of you on Instagram are not going to see this comment at all, but I'm going to read it. Jizraj says, something that might be worth bringing up to your respective audiences is to mention the fact that you can listen to your podcast on something like Amazon Alexa or Google Home. Right. It's easy to get your podcast on Alexa and create your own Alexa skill. Right. It's not for everyone, but just a thought I had. And families are listening together over Google Home and Amazon Alexa. I've seen an increased demand for children's programming. I've seen a lot of people asking, hey, can you recommend something that I can play in front of my kids? I even put up a thing on the Girl in Space Twitter account like, hey, are you wondering if this show is right for your kids? Well, kind of explaining that. I think what I want to sort of end tonight's live stream on is that we're in a season, and this season will not last forever. And we're going to come out of this season changed. And it's up to us what that change looks like. You decide how to treat yourself during this season. You decide whether it's a good idea to stick to a really aggressive podcasting schedule right now. You decide what time you go to bed and what time you get up. You do not decide when the trains go by outside your house. I don't know if you can hear it or not. You decide how you connect with your audience right now. And part of that decision can be putting up a statement on social media that just says maybe, hey guys, I'm not doing okay right now. My podcast is going to be on hiatus until, X date, or hey, please know I will be coming back. In the meantime, check here for updates, or, please stay subscribed so that the second I come back. But you really have to understand feeling right now. What you're feeling right now is important. And if what you're feeling right now is fear and anxiety and scarcity, then you need to acknowledge that and say, yeah, I'm feeling really scared right now, or I'm feeling really anxious right now, or I'm feeling a lot of scarcity right now. And to take a deep breath, which feels really good, that this is a season and it will end. And that while we're in this season, we may not be able to control our circumstances, and we may not be able to pay our rent, but we can choose how we take action and how we keep thinking about how we convey our message to our listeners and our audiences. Those deep breaths, they're important. So I hope you're doing okay. If you're doing better than okay, then that's pretty good. If you're not doing okay, I hope that you have a support system in place that gives you space and encouragement and love, because we all need all of those things right now, a little extra. And if you have those to spare, please do pass them on to your podcasting audiences. It's really important right now that we, if it's possible, and if we have the time and energy, to let our podcasting audiences know that we're still here and we still care about them. All right. I feel like this was like a little bit more of a serious live stream. Those of you who are joining us on Instagram for the first time, I don't know, usually I try to laugh a little bit more. But yeah. So I told Jimmy that tonight I was going to talk about how to create when it's hard to move forward and how you move forward when it's hard. And we didn't really touch on that at all. So I'll try to have that going forward in another live stream. We ended up more talking about being graceful and gracious to yourself and with yourself. Tim says, she's usually funnier, I promise. I know. Man, good. Serious is okay sometimes. Good. I'm glad you're still with me on that. Well, and my dad called. Like, that was new. He hasn't called during a live stream before. All right. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. I appreciate you so much. If you are watching through the Seriously Successful Podcasters group, thank you for doing that. If you are watching through YouTube or Instagram or wherever you are, why don't you come on over, join us in Seriously Successful Podcasters. It's free. It's a Facebook group. We have an encouraging community there. Oh, thank you, Mike. Mike says this was good. A moment of peace and grace in this maelstrom of chaos. That's very kind of you. So, sending lots of love and warmth to all of you. Yeah, and I'll see you hopefully next week for, I don't know. Who knows what the tone of next week's live stream will be? Maybe it'll be even more serious. Maybe my dad will call twice. You never know. All right, friends, take good care of yourself, and I'll see you again soon.